Two, one. Hi, everyone. It's John again with another entrepreneurial mastermind, and this time we've got George Ohan here. And really, like our goal today is to, as much as possible, make this a discussion. It's really not about us and about what we're doing and stuff like that, but it's really about the mission and about really helping the schools bring entrepreneurial education. And the thing is, like, George, maybe we could talk a little bit about what inspired you. Like, what was it that got you this idea of helping the schools to do that?
Well, my family has been in business ever since I was really young, but I didn't learn it from a standpoint of, okay, these are the steps of knowing business. I thought of business as a survival thing. I didn't know it was something you could purposely get into. When you're an immigrant and you come to this country, it's just like, hey, you have to do business because you're trying to make money and you're trying to just make it. So I never looked at it as you purposely don't get a job and you purposely build something without having a boss. I didn't realize that until I went to business school, and I just had that big old aha moment. So a lot of kids, including myself when I was young, I would have great ideas, I felt like, but people would shut me down because they have no idea how to encourage me to do that. So, at no fault of their own, they didn't know, little kid talking crazy about some ideas. But this day and age in 2016, with the amount of resources that we have, with the amount of technology that we have available to us, and with the amount of people that we have ready to be leaders, there's no reason why we can't be matching that stuff up way early on. And, a lot of people they're completely bored in school. They get bad grades. They can't focus. They get put on medication for ADHD and ADD and all these things. Well, it's really because they're not doing what inspires them. So for me, same thing. They would say I was doodling, all the time. And oh my God, why are you doodling? Well, now I sell my doodlings. I sell drawings. People buy my creation. So that's money. If they encourage that, maybe I could have gotten better and better and better. And this is the whole point about the Youth Entrepreneur Group is at some point in these young people's lives, there has to be a teacher, a coach, a mentor, somebody to stand up in front of them, an adult to say, you know what, that crazy little idea that you have, it's not that crazy. It's very attainable. We could set some measurable goals and we could start going for that, and we can actually achieve what you're thinking in your mind. And by the time you're 18, you can have a pretty solid idea of what this idea is. And by the time you graduate college, well, guess what? You will be in business. You will be earning an income. You will already have 1,000 true followers. You will have that entire time to build your business. That's what college doesn't do for you. That's what high school doesn't do for you. It does not prepare you for after that college degree. They prepare you to get the degree, but they don't prepare you for the real life. So this is the real life preparation of that. I'm inspired to teach people about real life. People don't know about finances in America. They don't know about interest rates. They don't know about buying and selling money, how banks work. They don't know how loans work. They don't know anything about health insurance, any kind of life insurance, annuities, all this stuff. There's just so much things that we're missing. I didn't learn about any of that stuff till almost the end of college, until you get to the hard finance classes. And I was over 30 years old at that point and finally learning about those things. So I wish those types of things, those types of ideas and perspectives were introduced to me when I was much younger. And that's all. We already have a lot of military veterans out here. We have a lot of civilians that are leaders in their community, and they're already doing things in smaller groups, and just kind of everyone's just kind of has all this energy going in different directions. What we want to do here with the Youth Entrepreneur Group is we want to gather all that and collaborate those people, collaborate those ideas, and say, this is called the Youth Entrepreneur Group. So whether you're in North Carolina or Wyoming or Florida, you are a representative of Youth Entrepreneur Group. You pass a certain level of background checks. You get fingerprinted, you do the certain things, and then we have curriculum set up. John, you've made some really great curriculum for us that we're going to start using. And this is stuff that's already available that we can send people. If it's one person in every state every day, that's 50 people a day that are working, where we're providing jobs now, and we're getting the information to the people that it needs to get to. And frankly, right now, there's plenty of government grants available for this type of training and this type of education to come to the schools. So if not us, then who?
Yeah, I mean, you just, in those first few minutes of stuff, there's just a ton of stuff that, like, really, let's break it down a little bit and talk about, like, kind of what are some of the key elements here that we're talking about here. And I think one of the number one things is what is it that the schools are not teaching? And I think, you talked about it a little bit, but I think one of the key things is that they're not yeah, they may have a home ec class or something like that, but they're not teaching the valuable skills that's really required these days. Like, yeah, they may have something that teaches them to how to write a resume, or, like something along the lines of, like, what is it do, what is needed to get interviewed for a job and stuff. But it really goes beyond that today. And let's go back a little bit to that element and stuff. What is it that's really different about the job market, about the just the business world in general versus, like, kind of what maybe our parents are used to and stuff like that? You talked already about the immigrants and stuff like that. I think that's really what used to apply to the immigrants now I feel applies to all of us. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
So, you're talking about the differences and why this is more possible now. The reason it's more possible now is just straight up technology. I mean, right now having a cell phone is the equivalent, I always say, of having 15 assistants. Are you resourceful enough? What are you using this thing for? Do you have a plan? And if you do, then one person, myself, just one human being, can be as effective as 15 regular people. So having that knowledge and having that perspective, it's this weird sort of like a stress relief, right? You're like, oh shit, yeah, I am pretty good. Because before it's like, damn, I don't have this team of 15. I'm freaking out because I have all this crap to do. But let's think about it. What do you have to do? And people are not learned. They're not taught that you can think that way. Well, that's why we're here. The Youth Entrepreneur Group is a group of people that has to exist to start telling people to think differently. Because right now, as far as 2016 is concerned, there's a lot of ways of doing a lot of things. And what we're doing is taking the burden off of teachers, we're taking the burden off of administrators in schools, and we're taking the burden off of parents. Because these are, the youth have questions, and the adults don't have answers to these particular questions. We do, okay? If your kid wants to be a good golf player or a good tennis player, you don't send them to a baseball coach. You send them to the right coach. If your kid has a good idea and has this kind of business inkling, you don't send them to practice karate. You send them to us. You send them to the Youth Entrepreneur Group. There's now a solution for this whole entire group of right side, right brain people, these creatives that want to start building and making and doing stuff. And frankly, I want to help people to start failing earlier. I want to help people to start failing. I want to teach people that it's okay to fail. There's enough sports and enough things and competitive edge and everything going on in real life saying, failure's not an option. If you lose, you die. Like, shut up, man. That thing gets burned in people's heads and little kids, and then they get stuck in this high school mentality for the rest of their lives, and that's that, because they just feel like they're a failure now. No, we got to change that. We're smarter now. Well, we have more answers now, and now we have an army full of people. We have all of these people. I don't feel like I'm doing anything new at all. I don't, not even a little bit. There's a lot of people doing this better than me. All I'm saying is,
well, I was going to say, yeah, what do you say to, like, some folks that say, well, like, we have like SBA, or we have some of these different organizations and stuff, or like different young entrepreneurs kind of groups and stuff. So what is it that, like, kind of that veterans can do differently compared to, like, some of these other organizations, do you say?
So let's say this: we don't do anything different, and we don't want to do anything different. What makes us unique is the fact that we can add an additional layer to the community. This is about community, okay? Veterans might have a specific stigma in every community going on. If you see me standing up in front of your classroom and I'm able to articulate a bunch of thoughts that actually make sense to you and it's useful information to you, you're going to think about veterans in a different way besides thinking of them as crazy, drunks, drug addicts, this and that, fighting. I mean, whatever thing you might think of them as, hopefully we can change that about what you think about the veteran community. And that's one way of somebody standing up in front of the classroom and just doing that. Another thing is, a veteran has already been in a positions where they've managed a lot, whether they were an E1 private brand new in the military or whether they went up to be a non-commissioned officer or an officer. They've always had plenty of management positions, For a young 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old person to hear that type of management experience from a military veteran, I mean, that's invaluable to this person. The average civilian parent could not offer that type of mentorship to their kids, and we're offering that in schools for free.
I think that's in itself really different. Is that like, it's really, if you put like somebody that, maybe was like a fast food manager versus somebody who was like in charge of a squad or platoon and stuff like that to stand up in front of these kids, the kids have a very different idea in their mind of, of the leadership of that person who's been under fire or who's been in combat situations and stuff. It just right away, there's a good deal of respect. There's a good deal of like kind of, the things that like really go with what people, like you said, in a positive way, think of a veteran and stuff. And I think also, like you said, it's just something that hasn't been harnessed. It's something that like, veterans do to some degree. They may be part of the community already and recognized by some of the folks in the business community especially. But I think it's like now, like to do something like this, to have a veteran representative in the community speaking at schools, I think it just really builds something that like it's just beyond simply that anything that's been done before. I think that's one of the key things.
And also too, John, on the other side of that is, like myself, I was not necessarily deployed, but I was overseas for 3 years. So that's another flip side of the coin that I feel like we bring is not every veteran was the guy with a gun kicking down a door. There was a lot of people pumping fuel. There was a lot of people in the Navy doing whatever they were doing. I mean, there was just the Army itself has 212 jobs. So, that's also another perspective that we can bring to the table and say, hey, listen, the military is like a community, and not everybody was that guy that's kicking down the doors and doing all crazy stuff. So you don't have to, just because somebody says they're a military veteran, think like, okay, this guy was, Joe Rambo, basically. So this all-around educational, piece for people. One thing I want to talk about is the platform that's being provided. Right now, maybe this youth entrepreneur group will be perfect for somebody that's been thinking about speaking, that's had some kind of leadership experience, and veteran or civilian, and they just don't know how to take that next step. How do you book a speaking engagement? How do you book a speaking gig? Who pays you? How do you get paid? What's the legalities of it? What do you need to do? All of those questions are answered by us. And that's one thing I want to, that's the information I want to put out. I don't know if people are missing that, or, what they need to receive is whatever that you've wanted to do in a speaking capacity as far as your community is concerned. Now you have a platform to basically say, hey, what's going on? How can I do this? Can I book another gig? If we book a gig in your area, we pass it off to you. You go up, you show up wearing and representing the youth entrepreneur group. And that's basically the idea behind this thing, is to have a collaborative effort of people that are already doing the same thing all spread across and bring them together.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the key is, like you and I have talked about, is having that infrastructure to support these folks who are wanting to do these things. That's the key. Is like, because like you said also before, there's all these different efforts that, entrepreneurs are pulled in different directions themselves, that beyond that, they need something to kind of back them up. And so that's really what we want to do. If you have any questions, as always, please type in the chat box anything that you'd like us to cover and stuff. And really, I'd like to recognize and, appreciate, Brian Richardson for stopping by. I know that he's a veteran as well, and business coach. And definitely, if you have anything you'd like to share, Brian, we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to kind of, basically share what it is that you're doing and stuff like that. This is, again, not really meant to be, what George and I are about, or, it's really about the mission. It's really about what we're trying to do to kind of basically bring together our different efforts. And the other thing I want to point out too was like how really with parents, it's like that they, to some degree, recognize that like something's missing, but they don't know what. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that, about how, we've touched on it to some degree already, about how the, some parents might say, so, oh, well, we have enough problems with like teaching basics to students and stuff, like reading and writing and stuff.
You're going to hit a chord with me right now. These are the basics. That's why I'm pissed off. That's why I'm like, why did I have to be older than 30 years old to formally learn this? How come nobody sat me down and told me about any of this? And this is ridiculous that it finally had to go through like a man's journey of, becoming a man and figuring out, seeking knowledge to get to this point. But I know these programs existed. I know the SB has been around. I know all these other groups have been around. What makes me different is I'm the secret sauce. I'm the reason this is going to work. I'm the one going out there, just like you're going to go out there, just like anybody else that's a part of the Youth Entrepreneur Group feels like they're the ones that's making that difference. We're looking for those people that feel like they're the ones making the difference, because they are. But right now it's hard to take any sort of, build any sort of like credibility or rapport in a community if you're just that one guy by yourself. It's hard to just be pounded on your chest. So this is the thing. These are the basics that parents usually do not know. And even if it's a parent that owns a business, even if it's an entrepreneur type parent, a lot of the things they might not know. This is 2016. We just learned these things right now. We just came through the ranks. A lot of the people, like what I found out from my experience recently and dealing with coming up with the new marketing strategy for myself of how I sell my content and stuff like that, is I'm thinking I'm almost ending, sometimes as I'm talking to people for the first time, they get argumentative with me, and I'm thinking, I'm not an argumentative person, so for them to try to argue with me, there's something it's not vibing, right? Well, it's because they feel like they know so much. They feel like they have so much experience in that particular thing that what can I tell them? I'm still wet behind the ears. I'm a new business guy. I'm a new entrepreneur. What would I know that they don't know, that they haven't already been through experience? Well, that's the problem. It's like they've been in that foxhole. They've been in the fight. I'm the general back here on the battlefield looking at everything go down, and they have not been educating themselves along the journey. They have not kept up. If you're a real estate agent, they have continuing education courses that you got to keep up. But if you're a business owner and you've been in business for 30 years, there is no continuing education thing for the small business owners. So you're really, really good at what you do. And as a matter of fact, from my experience, most small business owners are very complacent. They are complacent. They've gotten to the point to where they know who their vendors are. They know what time the trucks come in. They know what time the dirty towels go out. They know the whole schedule. It's become a 9-to-5 job for them, but they know their schedule of their little 9-to-5 job. So they've turned it.
No, I got to argue a little bit there. Is that I think it's different times. It's not just even complacency. I think they're just overwhelmed. I think different times these business owners just really there's so much that's changed and it just continues to change that it's just sometimes for these folks that they're just so focused on either keeping the business that they're having, and then meanwhile you have anybody next door to around the world is now their competitor and stuff like that they just aren't able to keep up with just the rate of change and stuff. And I think that's part of the problem as well, is just simply that they need folks who can help them to realize these are the different trends, or these are the changes on the horizon that you need to pay attention to. And I think it really, what we're doing really, even though we're talking about kids in school and stuff like that and the education for them, it really involves even things that they will need to bring to these other business owners. So in other words, what I'm saying is that we're not really just training these kids to start their own businesses, but they're also going to be the knowledge base for these business owners that if without having better equipped students, better equipped employees and stuff that think entrepreneurially and that understand what it means to run a business and what kind of are the new trends and stuff like that, these owners are just going to be blindsided. I mean, that's the thing that regardless of what the actual reasons and stuff like that, it's the end result is the same. They're going to be basically hit with the changes. The stat I love to bring up different times is that people are now 100 years ago they were lucky to basically read 50 books in their lifetime, but now every day we're being bombarded with more than 174 newspapers worth of information a day. I mean, it's just overwhelming. It's just something that how do you and that's the thing. It's not going to slow down. That's the thing that really is just the scariest part. Is it's not going to get any easier. It's only going to the curve is just going to now just basically get out of there. You and I talked before the show about artificial intelligence, that it's just something that are we going to get to the point that we're going to basically need AI to basically manage this information, something that is going to advise us, of how to, what it is that we need to pay attention to. I think that's something that like we, to some degree, we're getting through that, that like basically having a, what was that one movie, not Simon, but Her, the movie where the guy, Joaquin Phoenix has a, like part of their smartphone, right, is this, like Scarlett Johansson is artificial intelligence that basically advises him about everything and stuff like that. I think we're getting there. I think we're at a point that like we're going to need more than the Siri where we ask questions, but something that like helps us to recognize. So yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely like kind of beyond, above the point. It's going to be beyond what we even ever imagined and stuff. So definitely, let's see if there's anybody else who's got other questions, other thoughts about like, what it is that we need to do to
I got a
help
question
the kids and stuff
for
like
you,
that.
John. Was there a time was there any moments in school that you can remember, younger, where you thought you had an idea or you want to do something where you were shut down, or you just didn't know how to accomplish it, or did you, did you ever experience that?
Yeah, sorry, it looks like we had a brief glitch with the signal and stuff like that.
All right, you hear me?
All right, yeah, I'm back. Okay. Yeah, so I actually had the opposite experience. So where it was around the sixth or seventh grade, stuff like that. I had a teacher that she was really inspirational. She not only like encouraged, different ideas with our class and stuff, but like we were basically just inspired to try different things and stuff. I really like, just were constantly coming up with different projects and everything, and she really encouraged that. And so I think that's not common. That was something that like kind of just happened with this teacher and stuff like that. I think that's the thing that like really, like where again, beyond simply like going into different classrooms and giving, like talks and stuff like that, what our veterans can do is to be that person, that like somebody who like really, like encourages and nurtures these ideas. It's kind of like that thing where it's beyond simply like kind of telling these kids what, to do or what can be done and stuff like that, but basically just being there as a sounding board, being there for like somebody to kind of encourage them and stuff like that, where like you said, like otherwise people are likely to just basically have the opposite, like people that's, to be surrounded with people that like either are naysayers or like kind of, just turn them down their ideas and stuff.
We got a great question over here from Xavier Ybarra. Signature Xavier. How do you get parents to take responsibility to teach at home while living a busy lifestyle?
Yeah.
Fantastic question, Xavier. John, why don't you go on it, and then I'll give my thoughts on it too.
Yeah, I think the thing with parents is that they really, what we're in some ways the media has kind of told us is that like, oh, like it's the school's fault, or it's like different times it's like where we blame the economy, we blame many different things and stuff like that. But really, it really starts at home. It's really where the parents are really key to the education process and stuff. And when I say that, it's not about just the reading and writing and everything. It's about just the things that we're talking about. That they need to be an active part of like the encouragement, part of the if it's something that like they can support in terms of a project and stuff. It's not necessarily we're not necessarily saying that like, oh, the parents need to like sink money into any of the kids' ideas and stuff like that, but if anything, most of the times what kids are looking for is just that bit of encouragement, just that bit of like like it could be just instead of driving the kids to this sports games, like the hockey game or football game, stuff like that, is just driving them to like an event, like where they're either having one of the entrepreneurs speak or maybe like a workshop. So these are some of the things that like, is where it starts.
John, is there a way you can unlock that seat so Xavier can join the discussion here?
Oh yeah, sure.
Let's just Let's get a face-to-face and ask him about it. Okay, so what I'm going to add to it as far as the responsibility portion of it is, I'm assuming a lot of the parents that don't have the business or entrepreneurial lifestyle experience, this will also be that step. This is the growing pains part of society, I feel like. And we just, as the millennials or whoever, at this point in time, we're the ones that have to go through this portion of it. And by the knowledge coming home, that's how it happened a lot of times in my home. The schools is where we got the knowledge about at home to my parents, because we didn't have a bunch of stuff. We didn't know a lot of things at that time. Well, same thing. If we have a bunch of inspirational people doing this education at the schools and bringing it home, we can't hold the parents to any sort of responsibility, but at least we can try to ensure that some more information about this type of lifestyle is getting to them and starting to introduce them. Because what if their kid grows up to be 18 years old and says, hey, I want to go down and be a creative? And the parents just completely freak out at that point. They freak out at 18 years old when they figure out, oh my God, my kids love music their entire life, but they actually want to go to college for music.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. Is really like, along with educating the kids and stuff, is educating the parents. I think that's going to be an integral part of all this.
Definitely.
And that's like the thing where, like, as much as possible, if we can encourage the parents to be involved, because like, it's going to be the rare parents going to actually be willing or able to attend some of the sessions or be involved with that and stuff like that. But at the same time, though, like, if we at least in some ways, like, whether it's through our videos or through other things, that just basically are some other ways to, like, let them know what's going on, what it is that, like, the kids are learning and stuff, or why it's important.
This really helps the parents significantly.
Really,
it really does,
thing,
because
why it matters.
they're letting their kid understand and learn about a mastermind early on. Hey, Xavier, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, man, that was a great question, dude. You started off a nice little discussion right here. And it's like, how do you get the parents to take responsibility? And give us your take on it, man. Give us some insight and, give us your perspective. Let us learn something here.
Well, I was just thinking, I've thought about this a lot. It's like, you got to get, in order for a parent to feel involved in something like that, if they're trying to encourage their parents, they themselves would have to be active in that type of a lifestyle, or interested in learning themselves on how to be an entrepreneur and how to encourage that. So maybe there's a gap because of the fact that an older generation didn't come from an entrepreneurial type of background. They came from just securing your life by having a job. So maybe it would be best to have, like, some type of thing where they can log on to something and learn, just like we're doing right here, and they have information where they can ask questions, because at the youth is the best place to catch it, because what Ohan was saying earlier about why didn't we have this information when we were younger, that's completely accurate. Why didn't we? And now there's no excuse, because look what we can do with technology. Right now, anybody can just ask questions. A young kid that's 17, 18 years old can call in and ask questions about entrepreneurial situations, and he can get answers right away. So yeah. I think that's the hard thing, is like, if a parent is already an entrepreneur, then they're automatically going to be teaching their kids, because their kids are going to be they're going to be observing them throughout the course of their lives. So for people that don't get that, how do you make that accessible to them? Because if their parents aren't entrepreneurial, if they're just not interested in specific those types of things, then that probably means that I guess that's not true. Because I was going to say that maybe the having access to these type of tools may not be.
It's easier to learn those things if your parents are already doing it. You're naturally picking those things up. But I don't necessarily, as a parent, have to be interested in ballet to take my kid to ballet.
No, definitely.
We're providing the platform that saying, hey, if your kid likes this, why are you taking them to karate practice for 3 hours a week when you could bring them a business group for 3 hours a week? And Like, this is really serious to me. The reason a lot of businesses fail is because they don't have a social network to sustain their business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, imagine you start doing this at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, all the way through college. You're building this network because you already know what you want. Man, I think we're going to be creating some real monsters out here. We're going to be creating some really, really business savvy people that can compete on an international scale with the international market. You know, the Chinese, the Russians, the Germans, they're putting out some top quality business people. And I want to be part of building America's future business force. And here we are with the knowledge. Here we are with the credentials, with the experience, with the training. If not us, then who?
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that really, you know, the tools are there. It's just that different times, you know, like nobody's really helping these students, and then for that matter, helping the parents realize why, you know, like what's missing, like why what we're doing is really important. That's the thing that we've got to get down to is like, you know, helping, you know, bridging this gap that like, you know, that there's, yeah, we have the tools and stuff like that, but people aren't understanding why this matters now. And I think that's where we're really, you know, more than anything else that of what we're doing is really before even like getting the vets into the schools and stuff like that is helping the parents realize what is so, you know, what's missing, that like why this is such an important mission and stuff.
I'm sure every parent wants to see their child do well. And this is ensuring survivability, not just surviving, but thriving in the future. We have to be visionaries. We have to think about the future. We have to think of where's the planet going, where's the earth going, how are jobs, how are companies, how are corporations, what's happening. And if you're a parent, it would be a good idea to get your kid a few additional skills to help them out in their future.
Yeah, I think, you know, part of the whole thing too, that like what we're talking about here is that there's still quite a bit of the mindset that like you can get a degree, get a job, and have that retirement and stuff. Those days are long gone, and that's the thing that like everyone here is aware of, and I think that's the thing that like really is not clear to a lot of folks. I mean, they're still under this illusion that like you go to the school, you just do well, and just go to college, and you're set for life and stuff like that.
I was laughing because Xavier has a great story about going to college and getting a degree and then expecting a job. He's like, what the heck? Hey, tell us about your experience, Xavier, real quick, because he brought that up. After what you were expecting besides your student loan.
Well, the school promised that they would get you jobs, right? So that was the mindset that you get coming into it. They don't tell you that.
That's the promise. Yeah.
Right. And so in the beginning, it was like, well, throughout the course of it, they never explained that you're going to have to go out there and hustle and do this and do that, how to be competitive, how, all they ever did was really, though, the whole thing was just getting you to go to school. So they said, you're going to definitely get placement in a job, which wasn't even legal to say. They weren't even supposed to be saying that, but they were. And so when I graduated and there was no job, and it was like, well, crap, it was like, at the time I went in for computer and networking technology. And when I went in, it was a real big need for it. But by the time I got done, the market was all saturated. So people that were going for entry level positions, they had master's degrees. You're like, okay, well, there's no way, because I don't have any experience. So there's no way I'm going to get the job. And, so that was a frustrating thing. And since then, I never felt the need to go back to school, because what I did learn from school is that I can learn whatever I need to learn by having a book. You guys have schools have a specific book that has curriculum in it. But if you can get your hands on something like that or better, which there's a world of books out there that you can find easily, then you can teach yourself. And that's what I think that's the most important thing, because you could teach at your own pace. You could teach the things that you want to get involved with.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that like really the mistake that people have for what education is that it's about stuffing, students and kids with knowledge, and really knowledge in itself isn't the answer. It's really how to take that knowledge and apply it. That's when it's if anything, it's just information. If all we're doing is like getting kids to like regurgitate and repeat things and stuff, but like having them learn how to learn, having them helping them to process that to how to apply it into their lives. That's really what is the key, you know. And really what we're talking about also is that like it's not just simply about applying it to like, you know, going to like any work situation and stuff like that, but we're talking about like where this is knowledge that they can apply to succeed, to thrive in life, you know, like you said, you know, like kind of, you know, that the schools promised you that, but then they didn't really give you the tools that was needed to get the job. And that's really, if anything, it's that thing, the idea of you know, like it's one thing to give somebody a fish, but it's another thing to show them how to fish and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that we're talking about is here as well, is that like, you know, helping these kids to learn how to fish. That's really the key.
What I want to add is that's really great. Is that's the problem. That's the problem. Is there's not somebody in their life at a younger age, whether it's elementary or middle school or high school, that's standing up there for a short period of time and saying this is how it is. You know, when you have a company, the reason a company exists is because you're solving a problem for somebody. You're relieving a pain. You know, that's why you make money. Well, we are relieving a pain. We are solving a problem for a bunch of administrators and teachers and all these other people by teaching these skills and bringing this information and knowledge to these students. And there's no shortage of people that's requesting this information. All of the youth right now, I think they're getting it. I mean, I know they're getting it. And I know they're seeking knowledge. And there has to be a group of guys out there, men and women, that are teaching this stuff. And here we are. We exist. It's actually a real thing right now. And I think most people are not confident enough in themselves and their skills. We're in that little transitional phase. We're in the growing pains phase of society. And we just happen to be the renegades. Like, we're the guys that say, no, this is how it is. I'm just going to do it. And so it might take a while. You know, in school, they spend 3 months. They spend an entire semester of college teaching you how to write a resume.
Mm-hmm.
What? You're teaching me how to write a resume? You should be sending me out on job interviews, because that's hard as shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to sit there in front of somebody and be interviewed, that's very difficult. That's nerve-wracking. That's a special skill set that is besides what you really do, besides getting a college degree and besides writing a resume. Sitting there and going through the job interview process is its own whole thing. And most people are not prepared for that. Yeah. You know, and are we ever even introducing this perspective? Are we ever even introducing this idea to the youth and say, hey, dude, you got to sit across from somebody and they're going to ask you a bunch of questions and this is how it's going to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, we are doing something very useful. We are bringing information that's very useful. There's government grants available for this. So obviously people think this is important. So we're just looking for that army of people that want to say, hey, I'm interested. I'm down. I want to be a part of this. We're looking for them.
Yeah, what you just said about like taking a whole semester to learn how to write a resume, it's like kind of like I actually took an H&R Block tax course where you learned like every block of the, you know, the 1040 forms and the easy and all these different forms and stuff. And I feel like that's really what we're talking about, is that, like, you know, when you teach how to write a resume, you're teaching how to fill out a specific form and stuff. But if you were teaching how to do persuasive writing, how to, you know, communicate effectively to sell somebody, not to be salesy, but to, you know, be influential and stuff. That's like one of the key skills that, like, you know, isn't being taught. And it's like where that, to me, like, it's the equivalent of like where when I was advising business owners how to buy and sell businesses and stuff, that, like, instead of basically, you know, going on about how to do like an income statement or anything like that, I learned, you know, firsthand, like, what was involved with the P&L. What does it mean for a profit and loss statement of a business, and how that implies where the business is going and stuff like that. And what
P&L to any indie creative, they will shit on the spot. They will just be like, nobody knows about P&Ls. You're okay. That one just hit me because I just had a conversation earlier today about financial statements about an independent film production company, and they were just completely off.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That, like, you know, you don't have to be an accountant, but you definitely need to understand what is being applied, what is, like, why that's important. I mean, I think that's the thing we're getting back to again and again is helping different folks, whether it's the students or the parents, and then down the road it's going to be, if anything, that's going to be our first point of contact. It's the schools. It's helping them understand the importance of this knowledge.
Xavier, can you tell us about a time when you might have had an idea early on, whether you were encouraged or discouraged, just about one of your experiences?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Like a lot of times when I would always come out with a new idea of what I wanted to do for business. When I first started, it was doing web design. When I got out of school, I learned how to do HTML and some, little bit of Java and stuff. So, and you know how to use Photoshop and things like that. So I wanted to start a company where I'd be doing my web design. And that was shot down because it was like, okay, well, at the time I was young. I was just out of school. No one around me has ever done anything like that. So the people that that would talk to me about it was just like, oh, okay, well, they would say okay, but inside their face you can tell that they're looking like, wow, that's really risky. That's oh man, you're probably gonna fail type thing. And I don't know. It was like it took a long time. I think now times are changing from when I was younger. Everyone was very pessimistic, and because everyone was taught to live a certain lifestyle, or to go to college, go get a job, go to college, go get a job.
Pause. What gets you past that hump? Because a lot of that's the point where a lot of people are like, "Fuck it, I'm done. I don't care if you're right. You're actually right."
Wow.
So
yeah, you have to make.
What did you keep dodging, or what? Why were you resilient to that?
Because I always believed myself that I would be maybe a success story. I always believed that could be me. When I would hear the stories of the people the very rare people that made it, to me, that's what I felt like. That's me. That's me right there. That's what's supposed to happen for me, not me giving up. So it was always, even when I did want to give up, and I got frustrated, there was this burning feeling inside myself that you better do something with your life. You better become something. And so that was the thing that always kept me going. It was like, it's just this burning feeling inside that I have to do something, or else I'm going to be dissatisfied for the rest of my life.
Okay. So that feeling, I call it just gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that gut feeling, that fire, John, why, from your experience from dealing with, you've talked to a lot of people, you have a lot of experience. Why do people refuse to follow that intuition? Why do they deny their own gut feeling? Why do they deny that fire inside of them?
I think part of the key is that they end up surrounding themselves with the people that don't see that don't get that, and that's the thing that, like, really why for me we do these masterminds. It's like to basically not only to support each other and stuff like that, but to surround ourselves with people who get it, who understand the vision, who really recognize like what's the important aspect about this, which is to basically have the tribe of people who help you to move forward in your vision and stuff. Because otherwise, if you have the people who don't get that, who are going to like Xavier was saying about, like, kind of either look down on it with in their face and stuff like that, at some point it affects you. It brings you down, and that's the thing that, like, regardless of how strong your vision is and stuff, it's really hard to overcome that. It's like kind of like the difference of driving with the brakes on or driving with the brakes off, letting those brakes release and get going and stuff like that. I mean, and that's the thing that we want to help these kids to do, is basically surround themselves with others, that don't have those brakes on.
That's right. Okay. That just gave me a good thought. You're spending all this time creating a resume when we're the guys that are going to be spending all that time creating a business plan. The society is set up to teach you how to be a really good employee, and we're teaching you the opposite side of that. So it's very simple. Are you with us? Like, do you want this for your kid, or do you think your kid wants this, or is this knowledge that is useful to you? I mean, that's the importance of the Youth Entrepreneur Group. We are the ones teaching you how to bring that idea into a business plan, so when people are discouraging you the way they were for Xavier, you have the solid answers. You can fall back on truth and say, look, this is why it's going to work. a lot of times when we're young and we don't know how to do this, and we don't know how to rebuttal the things the objections people are giving us, is because we haven't done that homework yet. Well, now we're introducing the ideas of how to do the proper homework to make that idea real and make it believable to the people around you. And maybe you can gain some traction. Maybe you can gain some support. You might even get an investor if you do the proper business plan.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. Just over the past few days, there's this guy who approached me to help him with his business plan and stuff. And the thing is that, like, you know, and this is a seasoned, you know, entrepreneur. This is somebody who's started different businesses. He's, you know, working on another one, stuff like that. And, you know, I did a one-pager because basically that was all he could afford at this point, stuff like that. Just a investment summary and stuff. And the guy, like, you know, I was like, he wanted me to help him rewrite things and stuff, and he was like caught up on this idea of what a business plan is and everything, and he was missing the key point, which is a business plan is about execution. What is the key element that you're doing with your business and stuff? And I was trying to basically say, you know, like, listen, I can help you with this because this is what you can afford and stuff, but I can't afford to, like, basically drill down to, like, every element of your business plan, because right now, you know, like, that's just something not within your budget and stuff. But I tried to, you know, sit down with him with the element, and he was saying, oh, you know, but what am I paying you for? You know, like, kind of, I mean, I've got all this, you know, like, I've written this out. He wrote like 20 something pages and stuff, but it was not a business plan. It was stuff, you know. And I think you probably, you know, have dealt with that with different people. Like, they're following some template or something like that they've seen, and they think that's a business plan. A business plan.
A one sheet from you with the proper information is much more useful than 20 pages of nonsense.
But we canceled the order and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, and that's neither here nor there at this point. But what I'm saying there is that
not all money.
Even a seasoned, you know, guy who's apparently done different businesses and stuff like that didn't see that. So that's the thing that we're also fighting with as well, is that it's not just simply, you know, these kids and stuff like that. These are even some folks who are experienced are not, you know, getting the proper education, the proper knowledge that they can apply to their business.
I wanted to add, so I think a good thing to do right off the bat is pop the bubble of safety. Because the reason why they don't engage in certain education is because they believe that getting a job is the answer, so that somebody else could do all this, that portion of it. And the safety net doesn't exist, and we know that right now. But most people are still under that delusion. So popping the bubble when you're young, I think, is the best thing. Being able to tell kids, look, kid, you know, when you go out there and you go to school, if you go to school, here's what you get. You get debt. You may get an education, but it's going to be so general and broad unless you go to a really awesome school. Then you're in more debt. And then when you get out there, now you're going inside this process where everybody else is going to go sit and wait for a job interview, rather than going out and using that education to create a business.
Yeah, I used to say that, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was my red pill with, like, kind of, you know, opened me up to, you know, these ideas and stuff like that. But recently, I've been sharing James Altucher's Choose Yourself. I think I've sent Xavier, I don't know if I sent you a copy and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure I sent George a copy and stuff like that. And that's something that, like, I'm going to say is required reading for these, you know, like, the kids and the parents, that, like, they have to see, you know, like, just the things we're talking about, because, you know, like, Altucher is probably one of the best authors that's laid it out of, like, kind of showing you the stats and the realities and stuff like that of, you know, why, like, you know, the old model of getting that job, degree, whatever, just isn't going to work. I mean, that's just the thing that, like, people aren't getting
John,
that.
can you post a link in the description of this video once it's uploaded to YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I lost my train of thought.
Go ahead.
Now. I forgot what I was about to say. It was about what he was talking about, though.
The book that
Early.
What was the last thing you just said?
Okay. But just about the Choose Yourself and stuff. Actually, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I can't remember.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you both of your guys' time today on this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's keep it going. And I know there's a huge need out here, and the need is from the youth. You know, they need us. They need this information, and with it is how we're going to sustain America in the future, by giving these kids this knowledge right now so they can keep up with the rest of the world. You know, it's our responsibility, and, you know, I'll take any help that I can get.
Definitely.
Definitely. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.